Try to scam my dad out of £20,000, prepare to have regulators on your case and pay through the nose. So this happened a couple of years ago. My dad occasionally sends money back to his home country via these money transfer companies, and he had recently sold his shop, so wanted to send some of the money back home. Now my dad isn't the most savvy of people, and me and my brother regularly have to keep an eye on him to make sure he doesn't get scammed. We were a bit worried when he said he wanted to send such a large amount of money in one go and suggested using a bank to do it. While it would cost a fair amount in fees, it would be legit and would arrive on him. However, he wanted to go with this money transfer company that he saw an ad for in the newspaper, as they had lower fees and promised the money would arrive in a week or so. So we accompany him to the shop and discuss how much it would cost and when it would arrive, and the guy gives his best assurances that the money will arrive and gives a good price, and of course we pay him the money and leave. We weren't stupid enough to pay in cash and have no trace whatsoever. We took precautions and paid by debit card, so there is a trace in case he tries anything funny. So a couple days goes by and Dad periodically checks his bank account back home and checks if the money arrived, and of course we say things like "give it time, it will come soon," etc. After 2 weeks still nothing, so he calls up and asks what's going on. The guy says it's just delayed but nothing to worry about, so he hangs up satisfied. A week later another call, another excuse. We think okay, this is irritating but fair enough and not much we can do but be patient. More time goes by and the excuses are now getting less professional. Now it's, "Oh, we had to use the money you gave us to pay off the previous guy who sent money, so when the next guy pays you'll get yours." At this point we're getting seriously worried and thinking, WTF? Is this guy going bankrupt or something? We investigate our options with the bank and seeing if we can do any claim backs, but they're not too helpful as it wasn't a fraud case and he paid willingly, so not their problem. We go to the shop to have a conversation with the guy and see if he actually plans on paying up or not, and give him one last chance for benefit of the doubt, and of course he gives us the same BS assurances and nothing still happens 2 weeks later. Now the pro-revenge begins that you have been waiting for. In the UK, all financial organisations, no matter how small, are heavily regulated by government authorities, and if you run a business to do with money they will be watching you carefully. My brother, being a banker, knew exactly which authorities to contact, and he launched a complaint against this organisation. He sent them proof of the payment and explained how they refused to send the money. Within a couple of days they came down hard on him. Now instead of my dad chasing him, he started chasing after my dad, begging him to withdraw the complaint as it was affecting his business, as the regulator was threatening investigations and a possible shutdown. He said, "I will send it soon, but please withdraw the complaint." Of course we knew that as soon as the complaint was withdrawn it would be near impossible to re-complain, so we refused to withdraw until he paid up with compensation, of course. We also made sure that all correspondence was made through the regulator, as he tried to call up my dad and get him to withdraw the case with his sob stories, which we also mentioned to the regulator. After he realized he wasn't getting anywhere, he eventually paid up the full £20,000 and a further £1,500 in compensation for all the distress he caused, and a letter of apology to my dad, and the case was withdrawn. He has scammed other people like my dad with his business, but as they weren't educated enough to go the regulator with a complaint. He must have gotten away with a lot over the years, so it felt good to make him realize that he can't mess with everyone he perceives to be an easy target. TLDR, Dad tried to send £20,000 back to his home country via a money transfer company. Guy wouldn't pay up after taking the money, so we sent the regulator after his ass and got him to pay the full amount plus £1,500 compensation. Just desserts for destroying teachers' plans. This happened to my father, not me. I find it rather funny and definitely pro-revenge. My father was a teacher. He taught several subjects during his career, and spent the last 15 years teaching science. He spent most of his career teaching the more difficult students. One year the teachers were all upset because students kept killing their plants by ripping off the leaves. My dad wasn't really fond of plants, even though he didn't like having a lot of plants around the house. He started thinking of ways to get the kids to stop killing the other teachers' plants. Finally he came up with a way to teach the kids not to mess with plants. A few days later, he put 3 potted plants by the window in his classroom. He had a sign by the plants warning kids not to touch the plants because they were dangerous. He told every class that they were to leave the plants alone because something bad would happen if they didn't. Then he waited. He made sure to check the plants near the end of every class. 2 days after putting the plants out, he noticed that a lot of the leaves were missing from one plant. He had all the students line up against a wall and he checked all of the desks for leaves. He didn't find any of them. The next day, 2 students come in before school with their parents. They want to know what kind of plants he had. They had horrible rashes all over their hands and groin area. Their parents were quite upset at my dad for harming their sons. My father told the parents that every class was warned to not ever touch the plants. He showed them where the sign was and let them see the very clear warning. Then he asked the boys how they got rashes in that area. The boys had to tell their parents that they ripped leaves off of the plants of every teacher they had, and that they thought the sign was just to keep kids away from the plants. When the whole class was lined up so that everything could be searched to find out who destroyed the plant, they stuffed the leaves into their underwear. The parents were furious with their kids. They weren't pleased to have their kids get rashes from the plants in the classroom. But that paled in comparison to their anger with their kids. The boys missed several days of school until the rash cleared up. My father then told each class that the plants were poison ivy. It taught the entire class not to mess with other people's plants. You never know what might happen. It stopped the plant destruction for that year. Of course, the administration made a rule that you could not have dangerous plants in the classroom. No one thought to make a rule about this because most people do not plant poison ivy in pots and take them to school. FYI. For some reason my father does not get rashes from poison ivy. Poison oak or poison sumac. Planting some in a pot was easy as he kept some planted in an area of the backyard that he wanted my brother and I to stay away from. Sell me a fake vape? I'll destroy your eBay store and have you investigated for fraud. So about 6 months ago I decided to buy my first vape. I was totally new to the scene and had to do a lot of reading to find out the basics and what kind of vape was right for me. Finally I found the one I wanted. The Smock V8 stick. Prices varied across online vape stores, but the lowest price I found was from an eBay seller. The listing said it was authentic, and even provided free shipping. I jumped at the chance and bought it immediately. When it came, it looked totally legit. Brand new packaging, authentication slips, and a barcode on the side. It worked pretty well for 3 months. One day I went to press the firing button and I heard a small click. To my surprise, the button caved into the battery. I tried getting it out, shaking it, and pulling it out with tweezers. Nothing worked. Naturally I was pretty mad. This was a relatively new vape that I had never dropped and always took care of. By that time I picked up more knowledge about vapes. I knew that this was far from normal. I went ahead and filed a warranty claim with Smock, provided photos of the hole where the button should be and a picture of the code on the side of the package. I was mildly horrified when a Smock rep told me that the device I had was a confirmed counterfeit. I was fuming. Not only was I lied to and scammed, but I read about people who had unknowingly used counterfeit vapes that were burned or even had boiling juice burst out of the tank and onto their face and arms. I realized that this asshole who sold this fake to me had put me in real danger. What if instead of the button falling in it had been stuck on firing mode and caused a burn or a fire? The real Smock has safety features for that, but there's no telling if this fake did or not without picking it apart. I took a minute to calm myself. I didn't want to go off on the seller and risk not getting a response. In that time, I took screenshots of the Smock rep's messages to me, the broken vape, and the fake authentication barcode. For privacy reasons I'll call the seller Douchebag Vape Guy, or DV. I sent a message to DV over eBay, telling him that I'd like a refund and showing him all the screenshots and photos. Later that day, he responded. It went something like, "It's been too long. I can't refund you even if I wanted to. That's it. No more mercy for this guy. He obviously doesn't care about what he's doing, so it's time for some revenge." I took a good hour to make some calls. Stop number 1 is to eBay. I called to report DV and his entire vape shop. The lady on the phone was very understanding and I even gave it a little extra push by saying that the fakes he's selling could harm someone badly. Maybe a little manipulative but totally true. Stop number 2 is to PayPal. I gave them my transaction ID and filed a dispute against the seller to get a refund. I told the guy on the phone just about the same thing, and I insisted that it be escalated to a claim. He obliged. Now the ball is rolling. For those who don't know, in addition to getting the payment revoked if PayPal finds in a buyer's favor, PayPal also slaps you with a fine as well. Stop number 3. The grand finale. I called up Smock Tech and asked them their policy on fake items. The lady on the phone tells me they actively seek out counterfeit sellers and work with the platform they use to get them removed. Excellent. I send the rep the link to DV's shop and the listing that I bought the vape from. The lady thanked me and told me they'd be looking into this matter. Now, just to see if what I did worked, I took a screenshot of DV's eBay store to see if anything changed in the days to come. I checked back in about a week and a half later. I couldn't stop myself from laughing. DV had went from 84 listings to a meager 7. All of the remaining listings were just little things like spare parts, rubber rings, and knickknacks for various vape models. No vapes, no coils, no e-juice for sale. 3 days after that, I get an email from PayPal. I had won the claim. Not only did I get my money back, but PayPal was now investigating DV's seller account for fraudulent activity. Immediately I checked back on DV's eBay store. Not a single item for sale. I grin like the ducking Grinch. Hopefully this moose knuckle learns his lesson and never put his customers in danger by selling fake vapes again. Not sure whether or not this is petty or pro-revenge, so I'm putting this in both categories. I hope reading this made you as satisfied as doing it made me. TLDR, guy sells me a fake product. I bring his whole eBay store down and get him investigated for fraud. Comment. Don't piss off a horror junkie. I used to do a lot of community service back in high school. Especially when I was in JROTC. As they had events almost every weekend. They had an annual Halloween festival at a local heritage park that half the unit signed up for. A handful of my friends and I, including a girl I was rather interested in, were assigned to help run a haunted museum tour. We had scripts we were told to follow, but they said we can improvise to our heart's content. The stuff we were told to follow was pretty kiddie stuff. Gross out scares, spooky noises, an animatronic witch jump-scaring you at the end. Typical family-friendly amusement. Well, we soon grew bored of that stuff, and so too did a lot of the older kids. So we decided to ramp things up for those looking for more of a thrill. We proceeded to make heavy changes to parts of the exhibit with the permission of those in charge, and turned it into quite the house of terror if we so allowed it. We even had various levels of intensity based on the age of the audience. It was going really well. A lot of people even made several returns. At least, it was going well until we had the misfortune of being graced with the presence of one particular obnoxiously snotty and rude preteen. As I gave them the first half of the tour, he constantly remarked on how unscary everything was and how lame we all were. Didn't think much of it. We did our job and were glad when he finally left. About an hour passes and the same kids come in, but with a posse of his preteen companions. We waited for more people to arrive to fill the group. Again he ran his mouth about how lame this place was. But now he has an audience. Now he's trying to egg us on. He tells me that this place is a joke. How it's not scary and all. I said, well, you paid for another ticket so that's on you this time. Then he begins to insult us personally. Starting with me. Okay, whatever. Then he called the girl I like really harsh names. That's when I got pissed. Before we began, I called everyone in. I whispered to them all. Level 5. Level 5 is the highest intensity. Reserved for adults or really intense teens. Normally, putting preteens through that would be out of the question. Level 3 should be their tier. But most of them already heard this kid insult everyone. They were in. We set everything up for level 5 and we all get to our stage 1 stations on the bottom floor and stairway to the theater room above. It starts off like normal and I let him insult the cheap props and me. Where I send him to the magician. As per level 1 protocol, once they leave there, I direct them to follow me, but get grabbed by my friend dressed in a black cloak and brandishing a large knife. I screamed in terror as he yanked me away from their sight and locked the door. I let out blood-curdling screams and begged for help as he pretended to stab me to death. I snuck around the back to get in the theater room to hide for stage 2. The now freaked out kids and other disturbed adults make their way through a maze in the center of the room. Now more difficult to navigate through without a tour guide. My friends all knocked over items around them and moved parts of the maze, confusing them further. After what seemed like several minutes, they made their way out and sped towards the staircase. As they all stood on those stairs, my friend in the black cloak emerged at the bottom of the staircase with his knife hitting the metal railing menacingly. They all screamed and ran into the theater room converted into a graveyard. For level 5, we also turned on a smoke machine to cover the floor in smoke and lay hidden underneath several props. As they passed by, we jutted our arms outward at them, groaning and screaming at them like all good zombies do. I alone got up as they looked at my now bloodied reanimated corpse and chased them down the graveyard. Another zombie blocked the exit, making the only escape the barber shop room. That place was genuinely creepy already, so we just threw a clown barber slitting open his client's throat on the barber chair. He turned to them and said, "Who's up next?" They bolted right out of there and were headed towards the end of the exhibit. The animatronic witch that's there for every level jumped out and gave its lame cackle. They looked at it for enough time for girl that I liked to creep up behind them in an Amish-looking outfit. Pigtails and a powdered white face. She whispered into the twerp's ear, "Yees, this skin will do nicely." He freaked out and yelled duck as loud as his squeaker voice could permit. After calming down themselves, his friends laughed at him for screaming the most and asking where all that big talk went. He tried to save face and made fun of the exhibit and us again. But it was already too late. His friends knew he was a pussy and there was nothing he could do about it. We poorly hid our dubious smirks and said to have a great rest of their day. We were all pretty proud of ourselves for sticking up for each other and traumatizing a group of kids in the process. Karen chews us out over milkshake, I get her fired. So I used to work at this restaurant in the downtown city. Terrible job experience, but it was a job. One day, we get slammed. Usually it's because of a game night since this burger place is right behind a baseball field. But this day was different. First of all, I was already pissed. Coworker who thought he was the manager showed up an hour late, so I had to open the entire front of the restaurant alone within 30 minutes because people were already waiting in the parking lot. Coworker shows up. I don't say a word to him. Oh well, move on with the day. Day goes on, and I come in for my shift. Soccer teams come over after a tournament. I'm talking about 100 players with a line out the door. On shifts like this, some of the kitchen staff had to drop everything and help the other front of house employees, including myself, deliver orders because we're taking orders. Cleaning tables, putting orders together, delivering them, serving drinks, I did this when I was 18, and making milkshakes. Customers were great. All of the players that came in were so nice and we had no issues. No impatience, no complaints, nothing, just a nice day. They tipped us nicely, as well, so we really appreciated that. I should probably mention at this point that we take DoorDash orders. Which is where Karen comes in. For those of you who don't know, DoorDashers are people who are paid by a customer to go get food from a restaurant and bring it to them. We get in our usual rush and me and 3 other coworkers are obviously multitasking and rushing to keep everyone happy. DoorDash tablet goes off. I confirm it and start prepping the order. Mind you, this included a milkshake. I'm not going to go ahead and make the milkshake because God only knows when this woman is gonna show up. Rest of the order is ready to go and she shows up while we're helping other customers. Let me tell you about this woman. By definition, a Karen. She had the typical Karen cut with the eyes of a freaking White Walker. I'm talking bright blue eyes, obviously fake because they were Twitter logo blue and almost solid, that peer into your soul in a split second. I swear, I saw the gates of hell in her eyes. So, I'm just going to call her Karen. She starts getting impatient and asks me how much longer it'll be. I apologize and tell her that it won't be much longer and I go to start the milkshake. She starts flipping out at my coworkers and as I'm passing her to get the rest of the DoorDash order, she starts laying it on me, screaming at me because I didn't have the milkshake ready and that I was costing her tips. The woman was wearing Lululemon yoga pants and had expensive color contacts in. She would be fine without $3. Sort of manager comes out to talk to her. Let's call him C. C comes out and explains the situation. She doesn't accept what he's saying and starts screaming in front of 200 people about how she won't get tips and how hard is it to make one milkshake. Karen gives us the typical, I want to speak to the manager. And the manager just so happens to be C. He tells her he is the manager. He asks her to leave and she continues her rant, calling C a coward about 5 or 6 times. Karen finally leaves. I'm fuming about this lunatic coming in and making everyone uncomfortable. So I do a little digging. Turns out, if you go onto the tablet, you can find the previous DoorDashers who come into the restaurant to get orders. I remember the name of the customer who ordered, so I go onto the tablet to find the DoorDasher's name. I find her name and cell phone number on the order history and information. I get into contact with the DoorDash company and explain the harassment we endured from Karen and give them her name and contact number, saying she was from redacted city. They tell me they'll look into it. They contacted me later and informed me that it was taken care of and we never saw her again, as she regularly took orders from us. We all went on our merry way and occasionally called each other cowards as our own little inside joke. TLDR, DoorDash Karen harasses us and gets in my face after having a screaming match at the kitchen manager. So I contact DoorDash and I get her fired. Edit, I feel as if I should specify this, but we also got a strongly worded email from this woman stating how pissed she was etc and mentioned she lost her job because of it and that she knew one of us said something. I mean, duh.